This is Top Accurate Global News Update. I am Abiodun Mohammed. At least 17 Niger soldiers have been killed in an attack by armed groups near the border with Mali, the country's Ministry of Defense said. According to a statement released late on Tuesday, a detachment of the Nigerien Armed Forces FAN moving between Boni and Torodi was the victim of a terrorist ambush near the town of Koutougou. It added that another 20 soldiers had been injured, with all of them evacuated to Niamey, the capital. More than 100 assailants were neutralized during their retreat, the army said. In the last decade, the border area, where central Mali, northern Burkina Faso and western Niger converge, has become the epicenter of violence by armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIL in the Sahel region. Anger at the bloodshed has fueled military takeovers in all three countries since 2020, with Niger the latest to fall to a coup on July 26 when President Mohamed Bazoum was removed. Southeast Niger is also the target of armed groups crossing from northeastern Nigeria, the cradle of a campaign initiated by Boko Haram in 2010. Russian airstrikes on southern Ukraine overnight damaged grain silos and warehouses at one of the Danube River ports, a key facility for grain shipment. The governor of the Odessa region on the Black Sea said on Wednesday. The presidential office said in a separate statement that there were no casualties. Photos released by the governor showed the destroyed metal walls of the storage facilities and piles of scattered grains and sunflowers. Ukrainian officials have not yet said whether the attacked port is operating. Ukraine's Air Force said that it had destroyed 13 Russia-launched drones over the Odessa and Mykolaiv regions in the south. It was not immediately clear how many drones Russia launched. Ukraine's Danube port accounted for around a quarter of grain exports before Russia pulled out of a UN-backed deal to provide safe passage for the export of Ukrainian grain via the Black Sea in July. The port have since become the main route out, with grain sent on barges to Romania's Black Sea port of Constanta for shipment onwards. Taiwan's Vice President William Lai has said any Chinese military action in response to a stopovers in the United States as part of a visit to Paraguay would be China's attempt to interfere in the island's forthcoming presidential elections. Lai, who will be the ruling party's candidate in January, made a comment in Paraguay where he attended the inauguration of President Santiago Peña. He traveled to Paraguay, one of Taiwan's few remaining former diplomatic allies, via New York, and is expected to return via San Francisco. Lai told reporters such stopovers were routine and China had no cause to use them as an excuse to verbally and militarily intimidate Taiwan, the island's official central news agency reported. Beijing claims the self-ruled island as its own territory and has not ruled out the use of force to achieve its goal. Taiwanese officials have said China would launch military drills as soon as this week. In the week leading up to Lai's departure for Paraguay, incursions by the Chinese military around the island's waters and airspace, which have been happening nearly every day in the past year, were larger than usual. Missed payments on investment products by a leading Chinese trust firm and a fall in home prices have added to worries that China's deepening property sector crisis is rapidly stifling what little momentum the economy has left. Zongrong International Trust, which traditionally had sizable real estate exposure, missed payment on dozens of investment products since late last month. A senior official has told investors China's $3 trillion shadow banking sector is roughly the size of Britain's economy, and concerns about the outsized exposure to property and risks to the wider economy have grown over the past year. A string of defaults in the shadow banking sector would have a wide-ranging chilling effect as many individual investors are exposed to the high-yielding trust product. Missed payments could weigh on already fragile consumer confidence in the absence of stronger support measures from Beijing. Barclays was among a number of global banks to cut its forecast for China's 2023 growth after weak data on Tuesday. Citing a faster than expected deterioration in the housing market, it lowered its growth forecast to 4.5% from 4.9%. Worries about persistently high inflation in Britain grew on Wednesday as key measures of price growth monitored by the Bank of England failed to ease in July. Despite a sharp drop in the headline inflation rate, the annual consumer price inflation rate cooled to 6.8% from June's 7.9%, the Office for National Statistics said, as the central bank and a Reuters poll of economists had predicted, and moving further away from October's peak of 11.1%. The drop in the headline rate reflected falling energy prices and will be welcomed by British consumers who have faced higher inflation than in most other industrialized countries. but fresh signs of stickiness in core inflation and consumer service prices echoed warnings by BOE policymakers this month that the risk of long-lasting high inflation were beginning to crystallize. Core inflation, which excludes energy and food prices, remained at 6.9%, unchanged from June and higher than expectations in the Reuters poll, for a reading of 6.8%. Services inflation, which mostly reflects homegrown inflation pressure from wages, rose to 7.4% from 7.2%, a little higher than the BOE had forecast. That is the size of top accolade global news updates. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy midweek.